Dear listeners, thank you for your incredible support in helping our channel grow. We're aiming for 1,000 subscribers, so please support us by subscribing and helping us reach this milestone. Now let's start the story. Present, Liz and Jens, the wedding. I can't believe it. The day of my wedding is finally here, even though I know it's the right thing to do. I'm still nervous. I begin to put on my wedding dress, but my hands are shaking, so Jens helps me and says, Liz, this wedding dress is beautiful and fits you perfectly. I complain slightly. Well, I have gained a little weight, so it's tighter than I would like. Jens counters, Liz, you're so lucky to be having this baby. I only wish that. I interrupt. Jens, you never know what will happen, so don't lose hope. Liz doesn't know it, but I know exactly what will happen, but it's just not time for that to happen yet. There are too many other things Ben and I need to do first. Liz is in her dress, so I cover the dress with a clean towel, then the makeup artist comes in and begins the makeup. With my job mostly done, I wonder how Ben is making out with Bernie. Present, Bernie and Ben, the wedding. Bernie is having a hell of a time putting on his tuxedo. His hands are shaking so badly that he can't deal with the buttons. I pull a flask out of my dress blues, unscrew the lid and suggest, take a snort or two. It will help to calm you down. I hand him the flask. He damn near spills it from his nervous shaking, and I begin to button his shirt for him. He takes more than a couple good snorts. He drains the whole flask. Oh well, I don't need any courage today anyway. I am already married to the greatest woman in the world. The only nagging concern in my mind is that bitch Stacy. I wonder what sort of stunt she is going to pull today. Ever getting involved with her was a huge mistake. I remember the new rifles and begin to smile, since working up a load for each one has been a real pleasure. Each load seems to increase the accuracy. Mira and Ira have practically abandoned their PSG-1S, which makes sense. Bernie is finally in his tuxedo and brings me back to reality as he says, Ben, I need to go to the bathroom. I point to the door and say, there it is, you should be fine. He practically runs into the bathroom, but I hear him struggle, so I walk to the door and ask, do you need any help? Bernie complains, Ben, my hands aren't working right. I can't unbutton my pants. I open the door, unbutton his pants, and then leave. I'm thankful for leaving, because if the sounds are any indication, he dropped a real deuce in the crapper. Bernie practically begs, I'm done, can you help me again? I reply, flush the crapper first, and then use the air freshener. I hear the toilet flush and the air freshener spray, so I open the door, but it still smelled really awful. I know we ate Mabel's food at the tunnels last night, so the food wasn't bad. I ask, Bernie, why are you so nervous? Bernie confesses, Ben, what if I don't make a good husband or father? I laugh and answer, Bernie, do you love Liz? He replies, of course I do, and I've loved her for years. I slap him on the back and say, then you're going to be a great husband, because what wives really need is our unconditional love. Bernie says, but what about the father part? I grin at him and provide the best answer. Bernie, I've seen you with Jennifer, Maria, and Linus baby, and you're great with her. You are so lucky having a baby, and you're such a natural father. Bernie smiles and says, Ben, you're right. Sometimes I'm the only one that can get Jennifer to stop crying. Thank you. Present, the wedding. The wedding planner comes to the door and says, good, you two are ready. Then she complains a little, Mr. Blaine, I wish we had fitted your uniform. I smile at her and reply, Ms., this fits me perfectly according to Marine Regulation 192-5. She gives me a funny look, then announces, well, Bernie, it's time. Bernie looks at me and says, Ben, she's right, because your uniform is quite a bit looser than at your wedding. How did that happen? I smile at him and say, it's all Yen's fault because she screwed the weight off of me. Bernie begins to laugh and comments, I hope that Liz and I can do that again someday. He walks out into the hallway and heads for the ballroom. I walk across the hallway, knock on the door and ask, are you ready, Jens? The door opens, and there's my wife looking more beautiful than ever. She smiles at me and comments, your dress blues are a little loose. I reply, not according to Marine Regulation 192-5. She thinks for a moment, smiles and declares, wait, there is no Marine Regulation 192-5. I grin at her and say, you're right, but don't blame me for the fit because it's your fault. She pokes me in the ribs and counters, don't tell me you didn't enjoy it. We take each other's arm and walk toward the ballroom. Jens confesses, I miss having Sharik and Destiny here. I indicate with my head and reply, Destiny is here. She's part of the security arrangements. Jens has a worried look on her face as she asks, you don't think anything will happen, do you? She sees someone to the side, stumbles a little and swears, what in the frackin' heck is she doing here? Jens notices Stacy. Yeah, I didn't tell her anything about what Tom shared with me. And I reply, Liz did invite all of Leadville to the wedding, and she does live in Leadville. Now come on, you messed up your steps. Jens apologizes, sorry Ben, I really honestly hate that woman. I squeeze her arm and say, Jens, you're better than that. Now smile for the camera. Jens sees Samantha taking video of the wedding, and that changes her attitude. She smiles big and holds me even closer. We reach the platform at the end of the ballroom where Jens and I separate. She goes to her side, and I walk up beside Bernie. He looks much better and has calmed down. I take my place beside him. We wait, and then the wedding march starts. We wait for Liz, but she doesn't show. The wedding planner runs into the back of the church and announces, Liz is going into labor. Jens makes a beeline for the back of the ballroom. Bernie looks at the preacher and says, you need to marry us on the way to the hospital in Denver. I grab Bernie's hand along with the hand of the preacher and hightail it out the door with them. There's an ambulance waiting, the doors are open, and I see that Liz is inside. I shove Bernie and the preacher inside, slam the back doors, and the ambulance takes off. Jens comes over and says, that was a close call. I was glad we had an ambulance waiting just in case. I hug Jens and say, you always seem to know when things like this are going to happen before they do. Jens smiles and agrees. Yeah, I get lucky a lot. I get ready to say something profound when I hear a noise I thought I would never hear again. Present, Stacy, the almost wedding, and Ben's gift. I was amazed that Ben's witch bitch let her best friend Elizabeth Morgan go into labor. I thought she was more powerful than that. With the wedding being over, it was time to deliver my gift to Ben. I walked to where it was hidden, started up, and head for the front of the Delaware Hotel. The sweet sound of the exhaust and the whine of the supercharger echo against the buildings that line the street. I round the corner and delight in the shocked look on his face. I drive up in front of them, leave Ben's old Cobra running, set the brake, climb out of the car, and boldly announce, Ben, this is a present for you. Ben's too flabbergasted to talk, but his witch bitch isn't. Stacy, when did you steal my Cobra? I laugh and say, your Cobra? I suggest you look at the name on the driver's door. The bitch walks around to the door and swears, son of a sea biscuit. Where it used to say Jennifer, now it says Stacy. I taunt, come on, Ben. You know how much you've missed driving this great car. It's even better now with the addition of the supercharger. Ben looks at the car and shocks me when he says, Stacy, this isn't my car, and it's not Jens' car. It's a replica. I continue to tease, no, Ben. It's the real Cobra that was destroyed in your garage during the attacks on the cabin. I had it taken away and restored, so the only change was the name on the driver's door and the supercharger. Ben glares at me and says, Stacy, I don't want it, and I sure as hell don't want you. I confront him. Ben, if your wife wasn't a witch, you would be with me already. She has cast a spell on you. Ben lunges for me, but Bill is there and steps in between us. Ben threatens, get the hell out of the way, or you will get hurt. Bill protects me. I'm not going to let you injure Miss Summers. Ben steps up the confrontation. No one calls my wife a witch and gets away with it. Step aside, or I will break you in half. I think there's going to be a hell of a fight when the old fart who almost broke my nose walks up with a group of armed men. He says, Present, Tom, stopping a fight. It was a dirty trick to take Ben's old Cobra and have it restored, then deliver it to him after the almost wedding. I was sure that Ben could take Bill any day of the week, but I couldn't afford to let things escalate. So I walk up to Ben and Bill and order, both of you need to stand down or face going to the husgow. Ben swears, that worthless bitch called my wife a witch. I've had my fill of her interference, so I'm going to kick her butt. Bill replies, I will not allow Ben Blaine to injure Miss Summers. If he tries, I will give him the beating he deserves. I give Jennifer a pleading look, so she comes over beside Ben and says, come on, honey, getting your dress blues dirty for this filthy 3-0 for isn't worth the effort. Jennifer thinks for a moment, then adds, besides, she stole the car out of our garage. Tom, please press charges for grand theft auto. Stacy responds, wait a minute, I did you a favor. I recovered the vehicle and restored it. I think for a moment and ask, who has the title for this Cobra? Ben says, it's in the safe back at the cabin. I look at Bill, then to Stacy and ask, Stacy Summers, did you have permission to remove the Cobra from the garage at the cabin? Stacy backpedals, no, I did it so it wouldn't get further damaged. I continue, so you are in possession of a vehicle to which you have no title and for which you have no legal ownership? She continues, yes, but only so I could have it restored. I know how much it means to Ben. I look at Ben and Jennifer and ask, do you two wish to press charges? Ben tries to reason with Stacy. Look, Stacy, Jens is my wife and always will be my wife. You and I had a few months together, but I have loved Jens for many years. There really isn't any hope for us. Stacy looks at Bill and says, Bill, show them the paperwork proving she's a witch. I think I almost have things under control when Destiny walks up and says, Stacy, you don't understand. Because she is a witch is why they are perfect for each other and why Ben can never be with you. Stacy changes her approach and offers, I will change. I will take classes. I will. Destiny laughs. It sounds like the wind rustling aspen leaves, and says, Stacy, your destiny does not lie along the same path as Ben and Jennifer's. Your path diverged from Ben when you two parted years ago, and it will never meet his again. Stacy declares, if I can't be with Ben, then I don't know what to do. I'm not even sure I want to live. Destiny walks towards Stacy and Bill grabs her arm. A big mistake. So Destiny snaps his arm like a twig. He falls to the ground, writhing in pain. Destiny gets right in Stacy's face and says, Stacy Summers, you will stop the harassment of Ben and Jennifer immediately. Especially, you will stop the phone calls to the terror groups. Stacy lies, calling terror groups. I have no idea what you. I interrupt. Stacy Summers, we know about your calls, so stop trying to deny them. Stacy continues, that's a lie. The witch did it and made it sound like me. Jennifer counters, Stacy, there are no such things as witches. Everyone knows that. I complain, well, now that Destiny let the cat out of the bag, Ms. Stacy Summers, you are under arrest for conspiring with terrors. The FBI and us marshals take Stacy away while her security team comes over to help Bill. I look at Ben and ask, what are you going to do with the Cobra? Jennifer says, we're going to get the name changed on the door of my car. I comment, I thought this was Ben's father's car. Jennifer says, and Ben gave it to me. She looked at me and continued, however, I don't want to drive it until the name has been changed. Tom, will you please drive this to the garage for us? I sure as hell didn't need to be asked twice. I climbed into the driver's seat, put the Cobra in gear, and headed toward the cabin. I have never driven a nicer car in my life. Present, Ben and Jens, a mistake. I swear. Shit, we should have had Tom take us to Denver. Jens agrees, you're right, I want to see the baby. I look at Jens and ask, do you have a mobile phone? She shakes her head, not yet. Boy, not having a mobile phone is becoming impossible. I walk up to one of the agents and ask, could you please call Tom and ask him to come back? We need to get to Denver so we can see Liz and Bernie's baby. Hey, the agent calls Tom and relays. He said he'd be right back. Jens says with a large smile, you know there's really no back seat in the car. I guess I will have to sit on your lap. Tom shows up and we say, get us to Denver so we can see Liz's new baby. Tom replies, climb on in, but where are the two of you going to ride? Jennifer grins evilly and offers, I can sit on Ben's lap. Ben gets in the passenger seat. Jennifer sits on his lap and says, I bet if you worked at it you could catch the ambulance. I didn't need any more motivation. I floored it and smoked the tires for a full block. Flashback, Masha, the mission. As we were driving to the bar, the neighborhood changed to what I can only imagine would be called a ghetto. I could not believe that Louise went to this bar in this neighborhood. We arrived at the bar where the driver asked again, Miss, are you sure you want to stop here? I knew that I had to stop the animal, so I replied, yes I do. How much do I owe you? The driver said, $20. I was slightly shocked at the cost, but this was America and everything seemed to cost more. I pulled a $20 bill out of my purse and handed it to him. He offered, if you need me, I will come back for you. I smiled at him and said, thank you, I might like that. He handed me a card with his phone number on it and said, just call me if you need me. I got out of the taxi, then he headed off, and I walked toward the door of this wretched establishment. I opened the door and was shocked by the terrible smell that emanated from this place. I walked inside as many people stopped talking and looked at me. I glanced around the room where it was easy to identify the who assaulted Louise. I continued to scan the room and was shocked by one person that I saw. They began to move toward me, but before I let him get close, I walked over to the bar and took a seat beside the man I recognized. He was equally shocked when he saw me, leaned close to me and asked, what in the hell are you doing here? I smiled at him, made sure he noticed my head movement in the mirror of the bar and said, that animal looking at my derriere tortured and assaulted my new housemate, Louise. In typical police fashion he asked, don't tell me. You're here to kill him. He's the one we are assigned to watch. I smiled at him and agreeably said, very well, I won't disclose that. I got up from the bar, walked to a table, and it didn't take long until the came over to my table. He smoothly offered, could I buy you a drink? I flirted a little with him and said, thank you, but only one. If I drink too much I get sleepy. He asked, what's your favorite drink? I replied, vodka on the rocks. He offered, I will get you one from the bar. I like your accent. Where are you from? I flirted a little more and answered, thank you, I am from Russia. He went to the bar and it didn't take very long. He came back with 2 drinks and set mine in front of me. He asked, have you been in America long? I pretended to play with the ice cubes in my drink, but what I was really doing was testing the drink with my fingernail polish to see if it contained narcotics. The test came back positive, so Louise was right. The bartender was in on this too. I replied, no, not long at all. He smiled and said, bottoms up, then finished his drink. I put the drink up to my lips, faked tasting it, made a terrible face and complained, this American vodka is not drinkable. He looked disappointed and offered, "Let me see if they have any Russian vodka at the bar." He walked to the far end of the bar to get another drink. I took my drink, sat beside the nice policeman from my neighborhood, placed the glass on the bar and whispered, "This drink was sedated, probably by the bartender." He said, "Thanks, I thought I saw him put something in it." They walked over beside me and said, "Hey buddy, are you trying to take my woman?" The policeman said, "Nope." She came over and started talking to me. They said, "Miss, the bartender did have some Russian vodka, so here's a new glass. Now why don't you come back to the table with me?" He actually took my arm and led me back to the table. We sat at the table where I once again began playing with the ice to test the drink. Yes, it was sedated just as before. I pretended to taste the vodka and remarked, "Now this is much better vodka. What's the term you used before?" "Oh yes, bottoms up." He tipped his drink back, and while he was busy looking at the ceiling, I dumped my drink on the floor, making sure to hold the ice in the glass with my hand. Then I teased, "You know the real men in Russia only drink vodka." He excitedly said, "I'll get us a couple more vodkas." I reminded him, "Make sure it's the Russian vodka." As he went to the bar, I again got up, sat by the policeman, and said, "That drink was also sedated." He complimented me. "Nice job dumping it on the floor." He never noticed. I walked back to the table as the showed up with 2 glasses of vodka. I made sure to watch which one he sat in front of me. Then I faked some distress. "I do not feel well. Where is the ladies' room?" He offered. "It's in the back. I can help you walk there." I pretended to slur my speech. "That would be nice of you." He helped me up. I pretended to stumble a little, then he puts his arm around me and began to lead me to the back. I also noticed the bartender who started to come out from behind the bar. He walked me back into what is obviously a storage room. I pretended to be sedated and asked, "Where's the toilet in here?" He roughly pushed me on a dirty mattress on the floor and growled, "It's time to teach a Russian bitch how we do things in America." I bounced up off the mattress and yelled, "Help assault." Then I began to use all my Krav Maga training on him and the bartender. The friendly policeman from my neighborhood broke down the door just in time to see me knock both of them out. He laughed, then 3 other policemen rushed in, and he said, "Let me introduce you to my friend Masha. You might recognize her as the woman who took down the bus gangs." One of them asked, "What were you doing here tonight?" I pulled the dagger out of my left boot and replied, "A good friend of mine was assaulted by this, and I was here to exact some revenge." The friendly policeman said, "Well, there's no reason to do that now since we have all the evidence we need to put these 2 away. I saved the first drink you left on the bar as evidence." I replied, "According to my friend, there were more than just these 2. Plus, they had videos of the crimes." One officer said, "Ma'am, I'm the sergeant here, and we will get to the bottom of this and find the others. Do you think your friend will testify in court?" I replied, "I am certain she will. This has been torturing her for years and even threatened to kill the daughter he forced upon her." The sergeant said, "Are you saying he fathered a child with your friend?" I replied, "He certainly did." He said, "Good, that gives us DNA evidence that we can also use. Ma'am, we are thankful for your assistance tonight, but you really should leave matters like this to the police department." I asked, "So if I had not been here tonight, how would you have caught these?" The friendly policeman said, "She's right, Sarge. We didn't have a female on the staff who would take the job. Now come on, Masha, the patrol cars will show up and I can take you home." The sergeant asked one more question. "How did you know the drinks were sedated?" I held up my hands with my fingernails facing them and said, "This Russian fingernail polish changes color when exposed to any adulterated drink." The friendly policeman escorted me out to a waiting patrol car where I saw the 2 being loaded into another patrol car. He asked, "I don't speak Russian, so what's that name you kept calling them?" I blushed and replied, "Dumb shits." The policeman pulled into my driveway where Louise opened the front door, ran out and asked, "Don't tell me Masha is hurt?" I get out of the patrol car. Louise ran to me, hugged me, and said, "When I saw the police car, I thought the worst." The nice policeman explained, "Masha beat the holy shit out of both the guy and the bartender. Because of her, we were able to arrest both of them." He looked at me and asked, "Masha, is this the friend you told me about?" Masha said, "Louise, I hope you don't mind, but I somewhat related some of your story to the policeman, and I told them you would testify against the." Louise got a serious look on her face and said, "Hell yes, I'll testify. The scumsucker tortured me for years." He replied, "I will talk with the sergeant, and you will probably need to come down to the police station, give a statement, and pick them out of a lineup." Louise said, "Gladly, just let me know when to show up." He said, "Well, it's going to be a long night of filling out paperwork for me, so I need to get back to the station." I reminded him, "Wasn't I supposed to have officers stationed in front of my house 24 hours a day?" He confessed, "Yes, Masha, you were. Please don't be angry, but we're a small department, and we got pulled off the duty on your house to assist in this operation." I asked, "Are all the teenagers from the gang still in jail?" He replied, "They are either in jail or dead." I asked for clarification. Dead? He said, that's right. If you mess with the wrong people in jail, you die. Now I really do need to get going. After he left Louise and I walked into the house, and Louise demanded, Masha, I want to know everything. We were up late as I filled in all the details. Flashback, Ben and Jack, at the hospital. Yeah, it was good having Jack here because it took the load off me. I'm not sure how he swung it, and was sure once I signed the re-enlistment papers my help would be gone, but for now I was going to enjoy it while I could. I found George and asked, Sir, do you mind if I take a room for myself? George's reply shocked me. He sounded more like an officer every day as he chewed my butt. Sergeant Blaine, when the hell are you going to sign your re-enlistment papers so we can get Sergeant Reynolds out of here and things will return to normal? I saluted and replied, Sir, I was going to sign them tomorrow, but have now decided against that. I am not sure when or if I will ever sign the re-enlistment papers. George continued to act like an officer prick. Why the hell not? I grinned at him and said, Sir, permission to speak freely? He glared at me and replied, Permission granted. I tore into him, George, I will never sign the re-enlistment papers while you're chewing my butt about it. I thought we had become friends and had a good working relationship, but you certainly bite that in the butt. Now I'm going to find myself a room, take a hot shower, and get some sleep. Permission to leave? George's mouth dropped open and he tried to save his butt. Ben, come on. Colonel Maggie is riding my butt about this. I grinned and interrupted. So you thought you could ride my butt about it? Sir, command doesn't work that way. Colonel Maggie is supposed to give you shit about things, but that shit should never work its way down to me. While I'm thinking about it, I know from Jack that she praised the hell out of the work I am doing here, making you look really good, and you never bothered to tell me about it. And my job is to keep the men from bothering you so you can command, at which I know I've done exceptionally well. If things change around here, I might consider signing the re-enlistment papers, or I might just leave and go to work for the CIA. They offered me $200K to come and work for them. Now I'm leaving and don't want to be bothered, especially by the sex-crazed nurses. George explained, Ben, I talked to them and told them if they tried to fraternize with you they would face charges. I turned and said, well, it looks like you did one thing right without my help. Yeah, I was damn pissed off right then. Lieutenant George found me and said, Sergeant Reynolds, we need to talk. Why did you tell Ben about the praise Colonel Maggie gave him? I sure as hell didn't like his butterbar attitude, so I replied, Sir, I only relayed the message from Colonel Maggie. She was shocked when she found out you hadn't passed the messages to Ben. He asked, and you're the one that told her that? I grinned and replied, yes, sir. I did that after Ben told me he felt like he didn't know why he was going to the trouble of doing everything here. Lieutenant George swore, son of a bitch. Now Ben's all fired up again, and he's not sure he's going to sign the re-enlistment papers. I looked at Lieutenant George and asked, permission to speak freely? He pointed to Private Todd and said, after he leaves the room. I turned to Todd and said, find us a nice room that we can bunk in. Todd left. I grinned and said, Lieutenant George, I bet you gave Ben shit about not signing the re-enlistment papers, didn't you? He replied, I did. How did you know that? I swore, son of a bitch. That was the absolute worst thing you could do. Ben knows he has both of us by the balls, and you decide to chew his butt. Hell, he might never sign the papers now just to spite you. Lieutenant George replied. He said he got an offer from the CIA for $200K. I interrupted. Yeah, I bet he did. Those scumsuckers are like vultures circling a carcass. They have always wanted him, and you might have handed him to them on a silver platter. Do me a favor and let me handle the negotiations for getting him to sign the re-enlistment papers. He asked, are you telling me after an offer like the CIA gave him, he would turn it down? I laughed, hell yeah. You don't know Ben, but he has more money than Carter has little pills. Hell, he bought the sniper rifle he's using here and all the ammo for it. He even outfitted our rifles with top-of-the-line Night Force scopes. If there's two things that he doesn't need, it's money or butt chewing. So back the hell off him and let me take care of the problem. Lieutenant George shook his head slowly and said, I had no idea. I answered, well, now you know. But never ever talk to him or others about it because he's sensitive as hell about anyone knowing it. Now I'm going to go find him and see if I can repair the damage you've done and save both our butts. Lieutenant George said. He was saying something about finding a room and getting some sleep. I laughed and said, you sure as hell don't know Ben. He's not going to do that until he's sure all the weapons have been cleaned. I headed up to the roof where I found Ben. I was on the roof cleaning my sniper rifle and my M4. Jack walked up and before he could get a word out I cautioned, if I get my butt chewed one more time about my re-enlistment papers, I'm never signing the scumsuckers. Jack said, don't worry Ben, I gave the butterbar shit for chewing your butt. I swore, who the hell does he think he is? Chewing my butt after all I've done for the greenhorn scumsucker. Jack replied, you know how officers get, they start to think they are gods. I swore that god can kiss my butt. I'm glad you're here to take over for me, because I have some plans. Jack questioned, what sort of plans? I replied, that's for me to know, and I'm not telling you until I talk to Colonel Maggie. I pull a borescope out of my hard sniper rifle case, and Jack asked, damn, what the hell is that device? I looked at Jack and replied, it's called a borescope and is sort of like an endoscope for rifle barrels. I've fired this more without cleaning it than I really like, so I wanted to make sure I didn't damage the barrel. Do you want to take a look? Jack looked through the borescope and said, damn, now that's impressive. I can see every inch of the barrel. It looks fine to me. I concur. Yeah, it's still doing really well. Would you like to look at your M25? Jack says, hell yeah, that would be great. Jack field strips his M25. I put the borescope in the barrel and complained, Jack, you didn't clean this first. Jack asked, do you mind if I use your cleaning materials? I said, you're welcome to use the patches and solvent, but not the cleaning rod. This cleaning rod is only used on this rifle. Damn, Ben was being very particular with this rifle. I never knew him to have a specific cleaning rod for a rifle, so I asked, why are you only using that rod on this rifle? Ben explained, every time you clean a rifle, the cleaning rod picks up and retains some of the dirt of the rifle you're cleaning. I don't want the dirt from another rifle to contaminate this rifle. I smiled and replied, that makes sense, but why haven't you done that before? Ben returned the smile and answered, because I've never had a rifle like this before. He grabbed the borescope and said, let's see how the others have done on their M25S and the Barrett. I noticed that only half the team had cleaned their weapons, and I praised him. Good idea to only let half the team clean their weapons at one time. Ben smiled and said, yeah, Jack, you did teach me a few things. Of course they all wanted to clean them at once, but then I finished. You wouldn't have had any snipers. Lucky for the sniper team, Ben didn't find anything with the borescope on any of the rifles he didn't like. I decided to bring up a new topic. Ben, the CIA agents left the bomb maker here. What do you think we should do with him? Ben swore, throw the son of a bitch out the window. I laughed. That's what I told the holier-than-thou butterbar I wanted to do, and he said we couldn't. Ben moved closer and whispered, Jack, the a-hole Taliban captured a large group of Christians and have been assaulting girls and boys. The girls and boys volunteer for the suicide missions just to stop the assaults. I stepped back and asked, where did you hear that? Ben said, I hesitated shooting one of the little girls and George told me. I guess all the officers know this. I asked, how many of the men have you told? Ben grinned and asked, how many do you think? I swore, you told all of them? He grinned and said, that's right. It was tearing the other Marines up. Now we're all fine with it. In fact, this is one of the reasons I'm glad you're here. I asked, why's that? Ben said, I want to head out, find and free all the children that I can. I looked at Ben and said, I'm not sure I can go with you. Ben said, of course not. You have Masha now and can't do a mission like this. Besides, it's really a one-man mission. I cautioned, what if you get caught? Ben laughed, like that would ever happen. But if it does, my will is up to date. By the way, don't mention a word of this to anyone, especially George or Colonel Maggie. I swore, God, you're doing this without their permission? Ben said, I plan on telling Colonel Maggie because if she wants me to sign my re-enlistment papers, she has to agree to this mission. I mentioned, she could trick you. Ben declared, George possibly, but not Colonel Maggie. I wasn't so sure about Ben's faith in Colonel Maggie since she was still an officer. Flashback, Jennifer at home. I followed Daddy down to dinner, and as usual, Daniela has made a feast. Daniela said, Senorita Jennifer, I am so sorry that Senora Donaldson could not come home today. I was actually happy that Mother couldn't come home, but I put on a great act. Yes, it is a shame she will miss all this great food you made. I still don't understand why she insists that I'm a witch. Daddy replied, not just you, Jennifer, but her own mother. Daniela said, I think it is the work of El Diablo. He has tricked Senora Donaldson into believing that the miracles of El Senor have come from witchcraft. I asked, Daniela, do you believe in witches? Daniela replied, some in my country do believe in brujas, however, I am not one of them. However, I do know that El Diablo's minions trick many people. I will say extra prayers for Senora Donaldson, that El Senor will reveal himself to her. Daddy scoffed, witches? Who in their right mind would take about witches these days? This isn't the Dark Ages. I smiled and asked, Daddy, could this be from the alcohol that Mother drank? Daddy looked at the beer he was drinking and said, Jennifer, you could be right, and I know you worry about how much I drink. I stated, Daddy, I know you're not an alcoholic, but you do drink every day, and that concerns me now that Mother is in the hospital. If you got sick. Daddy interrupted. Jennifer, do not worry. After this beer, I will stop drinking. I jumped up from the table and surprised Daddy when I gave him a big kiss on the cheek. Flashback, Alexei at home. I wondered what my life would become, with the laboratory being closed. I secretly wished that Father could talk to the psychologist. However, I knew that was impossible because Mother had decapitated him. I heard some noise outside of my room. I opened the door and Father was making breakfast. I walked out and asked, "Father, how are you today?" He replied, "Alexei, I am really not sure how I am. My life was defined by my work at the laboratory. With the laboratory being gone, I am not sure what I will do." I asked, "Can't you find a new job?" Father suddenly looked happy and said, "That's a great idea. I am sure there are many places that could use my talents." I agreed, "Father, you are correct. You are very intelligent and should be able to find a new job without problems." We sat down, ate breakfast, and Father said, "I will begin to look for new work after breakfast." Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. Daylight approached, which meant we would take turns sleeping. Mira offered, "Ira, you sleep first and I will take watch." I suggested, "Mira, we have enough weapons now. Perhaps you could choose the best ones and we will make them our primary weapons." Mira agreed, "Yes, my sister, that task will be beneficial and will also help to keep me awake." I crawled under some additional coats we had acquired and drifted off to sleep. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Roberto showed up the next morning and once again brought breakfast. But not before Gail had complained several times about being starving. I signed, "Roberto and I are going to buy everything for the kitchen today." Maria said, "Good, Gail, and I will help you." I signed, "Not today. You got to have fun shopping for the bedroom furniture. Now it's my turn to have fun shopping for the kitchen." Gail and Maria both pouted, but I signed, "It won't do you any good to pout. This is my kitchen and I know exactly what I want in it." Maria complained, "Todd, because you are a gringo they will cheat you. You will pay too much money." I smiled at her and signed, "Maria, that didn't happen on this house, and it's not going to happen on the furnishings for the kitchen. I will get my price or I won't buy it." Maria asked, "What are we supposed to do all day?" I smiled and signed, "Whatever you all want." Maria said, "Okay, we might go to the gymnasium and see what it is like." I signed, "That's a great idea. Just don't waste your time taking martial arts lessons." Roberto and I left and Roberto said, "Thanks for not letting them come today. I wasn't sure I could stand another day of that." I wrote on my tablet, "We need to find a place that sells things for the kitchen." Roberto said, "I think I know the place. We use it for the restaurant." It wasn't really a store, but it sure fit my needs. It was once again more like an area that specialized in kitchen and restaurant supplies, which was perfect for me. I was like a kid in a candy store. Present, Bernie and Liz, in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. I look at the preacher and plead, "Please marry us now because I don't want Liz to have the baby without us being married." The preacher asks, "Elizabeth Morgan, do you feel the same way?" She swears, "Hell yes, please marry us now." The preacher starts, "Love is the reason we are here. In marriage we not only say I love you today, but also say I promise to love you for all of our tomorrows. Bernard Townsend and Elizabeth Morgan, in the days ahead of you, there will be stormy times and good times, times of conflict and times of joy. I ask you to remember this advice. Never go to bed angry. Let your love be stronger than your anger. Learn the wisdom of compromise, for it is better to bend than to break. Believe the best of your beloved rather than the worst. Confide in your partner and ask for help when you need it. Remember that true friendship is the basis for any lasting relationship. Give your spouse the same courtesies and kindnesses you bestow on your friends. Say I love you every day." Vows. Bernard Townsend and Elizabeth Morgan. I remind you that marriage is a precious gift, a lifelong commitment, and a challenge to love one another more completely each and every day. Please join hands and look into each other's eyes. We join hands, and I look into Liz's eyes. The preacher continues, Bernard Townsend, "With this understanding, do you take Elizabeth Morgan to be your wedded wife, to live together in marriage? Do you promise to love her, comfort her, honor and keep her for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, and to be faithful only to her, so long as you both shall live?" I proudly say I do. Now comes Liz's part, Elizabeth Morgan. "With this understanding, do you take Bernard Townsend to be your wedded husband, to live together in marriage? Do you promise to love him, comfort him, honor and keep him, for better or worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, forsaking all others, and to be faithful only to him, so long as you both shall live?" Liz says I do. She had a contraction at that moment. The preacher continues, "May I have the rings, please?" I look at him and reply, "My best man has them." We hear frantic honking, and the ambulance driver says, "I think your wedding party caught up with us." Liz says, I say, "I don't know how they did it, but please stop and let's get the rings from Ben." The ambulance stops. Jens throws open the back door and asks, "How are you doing?" I reply, "Jens, we need the rings." Ben walks up, hands then to Bernie, and the preacher asks, "Is there any danger she will deliver the baby soon?" The EMT replies, "No, sir. I figure we have a few hours." The preacher looks at us and says, "We need witnesses, and since the best man and maid of honor are here, I would like to finish this now." I agree in the middle of a contraction. Yes, that's fine. The preacher continues. May I have the rings, please? Bernie hands him the rings. He holds them up and continues. The ring, an unbroken, never-ending circle, is a symbol of committed, unending love. He hands my ring to Bernie and continues. Bernard Townsend, as you place this ring on Elizabeth Morgan's finger, repeat these words after me. This ring, a gift for you, symbolizes my desire that you be my wife from this day forward. As this ring has no end, neither shall my love for you. Bernie repeats, this ring, a gift for you, symbolizes my desire that you be my wife from this day forward. As this ring has no end, neither shall my love for you. The preacher continues by holding Bernie's ring and saying, Elizabeth Morgan, as you place this ring on Bernard Townsend's finger, repeat these words after me. This ring, a gift for you, symbolizes my desire that you be my husband from this day forward. As this ring has no end, neither shall my love for you. I repeat, thank God I don't have a contraction. This ring, a gift for you, symbolizes my desire that you be my husband from this day forward. As this ring has no end, neither shall my love for you. The preacher finishes, Bernard Townsend and Elizabeth Morgan, you have consented together in holy matrimony before God, have pledged your vows to each other, and have exchanged rings as tokens of your love and commitment to each other. In accordance with the laws of the state of Colorado, with the authority of God's word, and with great joy, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may seal your vows with a kiss. Bernie kisses me during a contraction. I accidentally bite him, and as he pulls away his lip is bleeding. I apologize. Sorry, Bernie. I had another contraction. Ben hands him a handkerchief. Bernie wipes his lip and says, no problem, my wife. The preacher finishes, congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Townsend. The EMT says, can we continue on to Denver? Yentz says, see you soon at the hospital. She slams the door and the ambulance takes off again. Present, Tom, Ben, and Yentz, in the Cobra on the way to the hospital. The ambulance takes off. I look at Ben and Jennifer and hope, because driving this car was a kick in the head. You want to follow them to the hospital? Ben says, hell yes we do. But this time you don't need to catch the ambulance. Just keep it in sight. We all sit in the Cobra again, with the same arrangements as before, and we're off. Keeping up with the ambulance was no problem at all. The Cobra attracts the attention of the highway patrol, so they whip their car around and began to chase us. They pull up beside the Cobra and motion to the side of the road. I flip out my shield, then call the number on the side of their car with my phone. The patrolman answers, I saw your badge, but I'm not sure who you are. I yell into the phone, I'm a U.S. Marshal, and we're following that ambulance to the hospital. The woman inside is giving birth. He asks, which hospital? I ask Jennifer, do you know which hospital they are headed for? Jennifer yells, Swedish Medical Center. I tell the patrolman, and he offers, let me give you an escort. He moves in front of the ambulance, turns on his siren, and we really begin to fly. But this car is loafing, keeping up with the ambulance and highway patrol car. I look at Ben and ask. Tom asks, just how fast can this car go? I reply, I was coming down the back of Wilkerson Pass outside of Colorado Springs when we hit South Park, where there's a long stretch of straight, relatively flat road. I left a newer Z28 Camaro eating my dust, but I was too busy driving and have no idea how fast I was going. I noticed, well, the speedometer is in a strange place and it goes up to 180, so it would have been nice if you would have looked at it. And I noticed that it reads backwards. I continue. Yeah, that's an oddity in this car because it's an original 427. In the newer street versions, they moved the speedometer and even put a glove box on the passenger side. The highway patrol who caught me clocked me at 137. But with the supercharger on it, I have no idea what the top speed might be. I remind Tom, keep an eye on the fuel gauge since we will probably need to fill up shortly after hitting Denver. Tom asks, the mileage is that bad? I reply, it was about 8 mpg before Stacy added the supercharger. It will be even less now. Tom says, yep, but that's when you were pushing it. Hell, it's loafing right now. My foot is barely on the throttle. Jennifer says, I'll let the boys have their fun with all the car talk, but now I wanted to talk. I ask Ben, honey, do you think Liz is having a boy or a girl? Ben says, Yentz, I don't know and I don't think they wanted to know. I agree. Liz said as long as the baby was healthy, that was all that mattered. Tom says, I bet it's a girl. I ask, why do you think that? Tom explains, from the way she was carrying the baby. I glance at Tom and ask, so you're some sort of pregnant woman expert? Tom answers, not really, but that's what I'm betting. How about it, Ben? You want to put something on this? Ben agrees, sure, Tom. I'm a Marine, so I'll gladly bet on this. I remind the guys, well, I'm a Marine too, so I want in on this. And I agree with Tom. I think it's a girl. Ben says, I will say they are going to have a boy because statistically more boys are born than girls. I ask, so what are we betting? Tom suggests, a bottle of Knob Creek. Ben shocks us all when he says, present, Samantha and Inga, a change of plans. Well, the wedding video was a bust because of Liz going into labor. But we did get a video of her being hauled into the ambulance, and then Bernie and the preacher entering the ambulance after her. I watched in total shock as the confrontation went on between Stacy and Tom. I had no idea she had been calling the terrors to give them information about Ben and Jennifer. But Tom said they had a recording of her voice, so it had to be true. If so, I think that Stacy wasn't going to get off so easily this time. My guess was she would be facing federal charges, and her lawyers might not be able to plead insanity on this. Inga walks up and suggests, Samantha, you might want to put some distance between you and Stacy. I ask, why's that? Inga says, the FBI set up a Stingray device in Leadville and produced the recording Tom referred to. I've even heard the recording myself, and she might not get out of this situation. I ask Inga, why do you think Stacy is so obsessed with Ben? I mean, she has everything she needs and most of what she wants. Inga replies, except for Ben, and I think that's what really bothers her. I continue, what do you think about her calling Jennifer a witch? Inga laughs and says, Samantha, I think you're reaching for straws. Then she grins and continues with the same old story I've heard all my life. Besides, isn't Samantha Stevens supposed to be the witch? I frown and reply, if I had $1 for every time someone asked me that, I'd be a rich woman. I really hate that my parents named me after her. Inga apologizes, sorry Samantha, I just couldn't resist. But I was truthful about putting distance between you and Stacy. I reply, thank you for the concern, but Stacy is my BFF and she is going to need me more than ever now. Inga says, well, you're a great friend, and she's lucky to have a friend like you. She's facing federal charges for conspiring with known terrors, plus all the charges concerning taking the Cobra off Ben and Jennifer's property. I ask, don't you think the Blaines will drop the charges? Inga says, Ben might be persuaded, but Jennifer really hates Stacy for the many times she's tried to take Ben away from her. There's a lot of bad blood between those two. I remark, did you see the way Destiny broke Bill's arm? It looked like an easy task for her. Inga confesses, the twins are two women I don't want to ever mess with, but Destiny actually scares me. I get an idea and ask, isn't Destiny supposed to be some sort of spirit helper for Ben? Inga agrees, yes she is. Why do you ask? I reply, well, if she's Ben's spirit helper, which we don't really understand other than she can become a wolf, why couldn't Jennifer be a witch? Inga smiles and says, you know, I never thought of it that way. I comment, I need to check on Bill. Inga says, good talking to you, I hope that Liz and Bernie are doing well. I decide I need to find Bill and look at the paperwork that Stacy developed on Jennifer being a witch. Perhaps it wasn't as far-fetched an idea as I originally thought. Present, Stacy, not again. I can't believe that I'm the one being arrested again. Yeah, I did make the calls to the terror groups, but I used burner phones. How in the heck did they track the calls to me? The bitch should be the one that's not only arrested, but also hanged or burned at the stake like they used to do to witches. There has to be some way to use this witch information against her. I already know Ben won't listen to me because he's under some sort of spell. Bill didn't even read the reports I gave him yet. And then Destiny broke his arm, but still got off scot-free. I think I will have my lawyers force the issue on Destiny's assault on Bill. They don't waste any time getting me to Denver and placed in a holding cell in a federal building. I of course call my lawyers, and they promise to come tomorrow, which will be fine. I get a surprise when one of the agents comes back and says, Miss Summers, you have a visitor. It takes a couple of minutes, but they bring Samantha back to see me. I say, Sam, it's good to see you. How did you get back here? Samantha says, Stacy, I'm friends with some of the agents, so they let me back here to visit. You really messed up this time. What were you thinking? I shrug my shoulders and answer, Sam, I really can't live without Ben Blaine. And I'm sure his witch bitch cast some sort of spell on him. Samantha frowns and scolds me, Stacy, do you know how crazy that sounds? I reply, Sam, I have the research on it. Actually, Bill has the research on it. Find him and check it for yourself. Samantha says, I was just headed to the hospital to see how he was doing, and I will see if he still has it. I state, well, if he lost it, I have copies of it on my computer which Bill can access when he gets better. Samantha asks me, you mean the computer the FBI has taken as evidence? I shake my head in disbelief. They took my computer? Samantha replies, not just your personal computer, they took many of the computers in the office. I frown and complain, I need to get my lawyers to have those computers released. By the way, do you know how they tracked my phone call? Sam said, yeah, but I was asked to not tell you. An agent came back and said, Ms. Stevens, your time is up. Sam says, I will stop in again tomorrow. And I'm alone again. Flashback, Masha and Louise, furniture shopping. With Louise wanting to know all the details of what I did to and the bartender, We talked far beyond our normal bedtime. We also had a bit too much celebratory wine, and now I was awakened by someone ringing the doorbell. I looked at our bedside clock and swore, Louise, wake up. Michael is here to take us furniture shopping. Louise swore, son of a bitch, we overslept. I took control and said, Louise, you get up and get Linda ready. I will let Michael in the living room and apologize to him. Louise went with Linda for the bathroom while I threw on my robe, went to the front door, verified it was Michael, opened the door and apologized. Sorry, Michael. We were up late last night and overslept. Please come in and wait in the living room. We will only be a few minutes. Michael gave me a funny look and replied, no problem. We've got the truck all day. He came in, took a seat on the couch, and I further apologized. Sorry, we don't even have any hot water, so I can't make you any coffee. He smiled and said, again, no problem. Take your time. I dashed back to the bedroom and found Louise was out of the bathroom. I ran in, took a look at myself in the mirror, and knew why Michael gave me a funny look. My hair and face were a terrible mess. I had huge bags under my eyes, and I won't even discuss my hair. That was what I got for going to bed with wet hair after my shower last night. There was no way I was going to bed smelling of that terrible bar. I quickly fixed my hair, put a little makeup on my face, and of course added lipstick. I came out of the bathroom and Louise remarked, Masha, I still don't know how you do it. You're a wreck when you go into the bathroom and look great when you come out. I replied, I may look great, but my stomach bothers me, and we don't have time to make breakfast. Louise suggested, Masha, there are a few fast food breakfasts that aren't too bad. I sighed, I guess I will just have to brave it and try one. Then I continue, but only this one time. Louise smiled at me and said, who knows, you might even like it. We were finally ready, walked into the living room, and Louise asked, Michael, can we stop somewhere for some breakfast? Michael gave us a shocked look and said, I didn't think you ate anywhere but home. I confessed, today I don't have the time to cook breakfast, and Louise has assured me that there are some meals at some few places which are edible. Michael laughed. Masha, they are all edible. The question is, do they meet your very high standards? Louise saved me. Michael, it wouldn't hurt you to watch what you eat a little more. After seeing how totally terrible Tina was, it made a believer of me about trying to cut out most, if not all, of the sugar from our diets. I reinforced. What was even worse were her diapers. They were toxic. Michael grimaced. Those are the last things I want to talk about while planning breakfast. Let's get going. We all climbed into the truck. It was one of those with a back seat, so Louise put Linda's baby seat in the back, made sure it was secure, and I climbed in beside Linda. Louise sat in the front and bragged, my badass Annie Masha kicked some serious rear last night. I had hoped that Louise wasn't going to say anything about it, but Michael said, yeah, I know all about it. Louise asked, how do you know? Michael said, it was front page in this morning's paper. Their main story was about how the person they are calling the mysterious female Avenger assisted the police with the capture of an assaulter and accomplice, and implied it was the same woman that who took down the bus gang. I recognized Masha from the picture. I swore, I hope they didn't show my outfit. Michael said, don't worry, it was a picture of your face in the patrol car. I felt better because I didn't want anyone to see me in those terrible clothes. Michael continued, I guess you really roughed up those assaulters since they are still in the hospital for their injuries. They both had broken noses, one guy had a broken arm, and the other had a broken leg. Louise cheered, that's my badass Annie Masha that did that. I stated, they had it coming because they tried to sedate me and assault me in the back room. Michael said, yeah, that's exactly what the newspaper said. Not only that, they apparently told the police about many of the other assaulters who worked with them, and the police already have them in custody. I guess it was a whole ring of perverts who got off on sedating and assaulting women. We pulled into the parking lot of a fast food place and Louise said, Masha, I know some items which are especially good here, so let me order. She ordered for us and Michael ordered for himself. We drove up to the window on the side of the building. The young girl handed the bags of food to Michael, but then she looked in the back, saw me, and said, hey everyone, the mysterious female Avenger is in the back seat of this truck. I was shocked when the fast food restaurant door flew open and many women ran outside to the side of the truck that Linda's car seat was on. They scared Linda, and she began to cry. Michael rolled down the window and said, please move and let me park the truck. They moved away from the truck and Michael drove the truck to a parking place. Louise said, Masha, you need to get out and talk with these women. I said, with exasperation, Louise, can't you please talk with them for me? Louise simply said, Masha, you're the hero, not me. I reluctantly got out of the back of the truck while the women began to clap. Some approached me and said, those men assaulted me. I want to thank you for helping the police to capture them. I was shocked when they hugged me and cried. I said, I'm sorry, but I need to eat my breakfast, and we need to be going. I got back into the truck and asked, Michael, can you please leave? Michael answered, no problem. We left the fast food restaurant, and I thought the ordeal was over. I should have known better. Flashback, Ben and Jack, at the hospital. With my rifle clean, and half of the sniper squad's rifles cleaned and inspected, I ordered, "Okay, the rest of you clean your rifles." I watched to make sure they were doing it correctly, looked at Jack, and said, "Well, it's time for me to get on the horn to Colonel Maggie and tell her about the mission I'm planning." Jack cautioned, "Ben, don't push her too hard. You know how she gets." I laughed and said, "Jack, we both know that I'm holding all the cards here, so I can do whatever I want, and she really can't do shit." Jack followed me into the comm room, where George was getting his butt chewed again by Colonel Maggie about my re-enlistment papers. I loudly laughed. Now that's music to my ears. George turned and motioned for me to shut up. I yelled, "If that's Colonel Maggie, I want to talk to her." George handed the mic to me, and Colonel Maggie said, "Good to talk to you, soon-to-be former Sergeant Blaine." I stopped her before she got going. "Sir, I plan on signing my re-enlistment papers, but there is one additional agreement I want from you." Colonel Maggie knew better than to give me too much shit, but she reminded me, "Sergeant Blaine, we met all your requests, and now you want something else?" I replied, "Yes, sir, I do. It's come to my attention that the Taliban captured a large group of Christians, and they actively assault them on a daily basis. I would like permission to go on a mission to rescue as many of them as possible." The radio was silent for a short time, and Colonel Maggie asked, "Don't tell me Lieutenant George provided this information to you?" I replied, "Yes, sir, it was the lieutenant who informed me, and I have since told all the men." George began to swear, "Son of a bitch. I ordered you not to tell anyone." I continued, "Sir, it was tearing the men up having to shoot the children. In my opinion, keeping this information from the troops was doing more damage than good." Colonel Maggie asked, "Sergeant Blaine, what if you get caught?" I chuckled and replied, "Jack already asked me that question, but we both know the likelihood of that happening is very slim. If it does happen, or if I get killed, my will is in order. I know, sir, that you don't like the sound of this mission. However, I'm going to do it whether you agree to it or not. So I'm giving you the chance to help me save some lives." Once again, the radio was quiet for a period of time. Finally, Colonel Maggie said, "Sergeant, I don't like being forced to do anything, and I'm tempted to let your enlistment expire." I took a chance and interrupted her. "Sir, it won't matter to me. I'm going to do this mission with the support of the Marines, or without it." Things got quiet again, and I waited until finally Colonel Maggie said, "Well, hell, we sure don't want you to do this without the Marines. Sergeant Blaine, I think this is one of the more harebrained missions I've ever heard of, but if anyone can pull it off, you can. I suppose you want this in writing." I replied, "No, sir, your word is good enough for me." Colonel Maggie said, "Sergeant Blaine, you have my word. But if you get killed, I'm going to send your carcass to Thule." We all laughed, and Colonel Maggie ordered, "Sergeant Blaine, let me talk to the lieutenant again." I handed the mic to Lieutenant George, looked at Jack, and said, "I'm going to catch some shut-eye." Jack said, "I needed to get the papers signed, so I said, 'Ben, do me a favor and sign the papers first.'" He smiled and said, "Sure, where are they?" I took a folder out of my pack, handed it to Ben along with a pen. He signed the papers, and I said, "Damn, Ben, I hope like hell you come back from this mission." He smiled at me and said, "If I don't come back, I left it all to you and Masha. Now don't do something stupid with it." I swore, "Hell, Ben, why would you do that?" Ben said, "Shit, Jack. You and Masha are more family to me than I've ever had, so of course it's going to you. Now listen, if I don't come back, get Colonel Maggie to give you a hardship discharge, get back to Masha, and remember me occasionally when you have a bourbon." He hugged me and said, "I'm moving out tonight, so I need to get some sleep." Ben left for a room somewhere, and I left to try to find Todd. Flashback, Jennifer at home. Daddy was surprised by the kiss on the cheek and said, "Jennifer, I didn't know my drinking bothered you so much." I sat back in my chair and confessed, "Daddy, with Mother sick, I don't want you to get sick too, because then I would have no one to take care of me." Daddy got up from the table with his beer in hand, walked to the kitchen sink, dumped it out, and said, "Daniela, make sure you do not buy any more beer when you go shopping." Daniela replied, "Okay, Senor Donaldson, but what about your other alcohol?" Daddy thought for a moment, looked at me and asked, "Some of those were very expensive, Jennifer. Would it be okay if I kept them but just didn't drink them?" I smiled at Daddy and replied, "Only if we pinky swear on it." Daddy motioned to me. I got up from the table, went to his side of the table, and we pinky swore. "Jennifer, I promise not to take another drink of alcohol." I gave Daddy another kiss on the cheek, moved back to my chair, and Daniela asked, "Senorita Jennifer, I do not know this pinky swear thing you and Senor Donaldson performed." I explained, "Daniela, it's sort of like shaking hands on an agreement, but stronger." Daddy furthered the explanation. "When I pinky swear with Jennifer, she knows that I will never break my agreement." Daniela replied, "I have heard that some people use the promesa Dominique in my country, but I have never seen it done before." I do not think it holds much significance in most Hispanic countries. I asked, so promesa must mean promise and manique is the little finger? Daniela smiled and replied, Si, señorita Jennifer, muy bien. Daddy laughed. I sure never thought I would be learning this much Spanish. I added, and the culture of Hispanic nations. Daniela reinforced, remember that Castilian Spanish, which they speak in Spain, is different than Spanish in most of the other countries. I smiled at Daniela and changed the subject. So, is Jed ever going to visit again? Daddy added, yeah, it was good to see him again. Daniela blushed and replied, I do not know. I am not sure he would want to see me again. I pipe up. Well, you won't know if you don't call him. Daddy reinforces, yeah, why don't you call him and invite him for dinner tonight and get him to drink the rest of the beer in the refrigerator? Daniela coyly replied, I do not know. I decided this had gone on long enough, so I walked over to the phone, found his number, and dialed it. When it rang, I said, Daniela, I called Jed for you. She jumped up from the table and took the phone from me. I looked at Daddy and suggested, I think we should leave. Daddy and I left the dining room to give Daniela some space. Flashback, Alexei at home. Father kept his word and started looking for work right after breakfast. I washed the dishes to provide him with additional time. Once I finished the dishes, I went to my room and began to study. Yes, even though I would never go to the laboratory again, I still needed to study. Father excitedly came into my room and said, Alexei, I have a job interview this afternoon at a different laboratory. I asked, Father, please tell me that I will not go to live there like I did at the old laboratory. Father said, of course not, Alexei. They don't do that sort of research at this place. I continued the questions. Father, then what will I do when you're at the new laboratory? Father cautioned, Alexei, I do not have the job yet, so asking that question is premature. But I think we would need to enroll you in the local school. I was not sure I liked that answer, but I did not want to discourage Father, so I smiled and lied. That would be interesting. Flashback, Ira and Mira, continuing. It felt like I no sooner found sleep than Mira was jostling my shoulder. She whispered, my sister, I feel we have made a grave mistake. I replied in a whisper, Mira, what troubles you? Mira stated, my sister, we did not eliminate our tracks when we returned to our present abode. There is new noise from the encampment, and I fear they will track us. I trained my auditory canals toward the opening of the cave, then oculated and noticed that the sun had risen and swore, son of a female Saluki, my sister, your concerns are accurate. Mira presents me a rifle and says, my sister, this is the second best rifle we acquired. I whispered, where's the first best rifle? Mira replied, I have it, of course. We slowly transversed toward the cave opening. When we arrived at the opening, we had a decision to make. Flashback, Todd, on the mission. Roberto asked, Todd, what do you want to purchase first? I wrote on the tablet, Roberto, can your cousins again provide transportation for whatever we buy? He replied, let me call them and see if they are busy. He made the call and explained, they are busy this morning, but not this afternoon. Then he asked, Todd, why do you want to shop for the kitchen equipment? I wrote on the tablet, I like to cook and most people tell me I'm a good cook. Then I continued with the tablet. Let's start with the stove. I would like something like I saw in the kitchen at your restaurant. We weaved our way through the stores as each one of them shouted how their products were better than similar products next to them. I followed Roberto into a store. He walked up to the proprietor. They began to talk, and finally Roberto asked, do you have any ranges like the one in my restaurant? The man replied, yes, we have a new shipment. Don't tell me you already wore out the one I sold you. Roberto laughed and said, no way. My friend here is looking for a stove like the one in my restaurant for his house. There was no haggling here. The man said, Roberto, thank you for remembering me. I will sell you this model for 10% above my cost. I began to look it over, and the man asked, your friend doesn't speak? I showed him my neck, and he said, that must have hurt. He began to describe all the features of the stove, and I was falling in love, as much as a man could fall in love with a stove. When he was done, he quoted a price that was much less than I expected. I nodded at Roberto, and he said, Todd will take this. I wrote on the tablet, now I would like to purchase some good cookware, especially a large wok with a lid on it. The man said, Roberto, we might have what he's looking for in my cookware store. Roberto replied, Todd, follow me. We walked a few shops down, into a different store, and there were more and different pans than I had ever seen. I began to walk the aisle, and the proprietor of this shop came up to Roberto, and she began to converse. Roberto explained what I wanted, and she said, please follow me. We followed her to the back of the store, and I found a perfect wok with a great lid. It didn't take long until I had chosen all the pots and pans that I needed. Then came the cooking utensils. With all the items chosen, she began to total the items and quoted a reasonable price. I again nodded my head, and Roberto said, please begin to wrap them up. Todd will take them. We will pay when we come back. I wrote on the tablet, now I would like electronic things, like a rice cooker, food processor, mixer, etc. We walked past several shops, and when I saw one that I thought I would like, I headed toward the door. Roberto grabbed my arm and said, "Todd, do not use this vendor. He has a bad reputation." We continued, then Roberto pointed to a store and said, "This is the one I would choose." We walked inside and Roberto began a conversation with the proprietor while I began to check out the items. They came over and the old man said, "Roberto told me about you, so let me show you some items that I think you will like." He began with a huge rice cooker. I moved my hands in a way that he understood it was too big, so he showed me a smaller one that was perfect. We also settled on a great food processor and a mixer with all the attachments. He once again quoted me a price that I liked, so I nodded and Roberto said, "We will take all of those, please prepare them for when we return. We will pay you then." Roberto looked at me and said, "Todd, you've forgotten the plates, glasses, and other items needed for dining." He was correct. I palmed my face in embarrassment and Roberto said, "But those are easy. I know just the place to go." We headed to a little store behind some other stores. The proprietor saw Roberto and she asked, "Don't tell me you need more dishes for your restaurant?" Roberto explained that I needed some dishes. She asked, "How many place settings do you need?" That was something I hadn't thought about. I began to think and Roberto said he would like 12 place settings. I figured that was fine. We began to look at different patterns and finally settled on one I liked. She quoted me a price and Roberto practically exploded. "That is an outrageous price. I will never do business here again." We began to walk out the door and the woman apologized. "Sorry, Roberto. I made a mistake with the price. I've reconsidered and this is my new price." Roberto complained, "We will leave unless you make it 10% lower." The woman agreed and Roberto said, "We need it all packed correctly for travel and we'll pay when we come back." Roberto said, "Todd, I think we are done, but my cousins won't be here for at least an hour and a half." I motioned that I wanted to eat and Roberto declined. "Todd, there are no places here I would trust eating at. However, we do have some good beer, and beer is always safe if they open it in front of you." I nod my head. We go inside a dive of a restaurant and Roberto orders 2 beers. They bring it to the table, open it, and we begin to drink. Roberto's correct. The beer is excellent. Present, Jens, Ben, and Tom, in the Cobra on the way to the hospital. Tom wants to bet Ben a bottle of Knob Creek that Liz's baby is a girl, and Ben shocks us all when he replies, "Tom, it has to be something other than alcohol, because I've decided to stop drinking." I immediately ask, "Ben, why have you decided to stop drinking?" Ben kisses me on the cheek and answers, "Jens, I've been drinking too much lately, and it needs to stop." I smile at Ben because it reminds me of the time Daddy stopped drinking for me and agree with him. I think that's a wise idea, and I'm going to join you. Having Jens on my lap has been a little uncomfortable, not because of her weight, but because of the way she's squirming around. It's exciting me, and I really don't want to be excited right now. I whisper in Jens' ear, "Please sit still. All your squirming is starting to get me excited." Jens grins at me and whispers back, "I know, I can feel it." But of course the squirming doesn't stop or even slow down. I whisper a threat, "If you don't stop, I'm going to ask Tom to stop so I can sit on your lap." Jens gives me an evil grin and says, "Okay, I will stop for now, but it was fun while it lasted." I whisper a complaint, "Maybe for you, but for me it is starting to hurt." Jens pouts and whispers a complaint of her own. "Well, that's no fun." I decide that 2 can play this game, so I slip my hand up her dress and begin to lightly stroke her behind the knee. I know she loves this. Jens whispers another complaint. "Ben, what in the heck are you doing? Tom will catch us." Ben and Jennifer are playing with a lot of whispering going on between them. Damn, they are a cute couple, and I sort of wish I was younger so I could start a relationship like theirs. But I'm too damn old to be thinking of that now. Inga is in for a big surprise at how slowly I plan to proceed on our relationship. I hope eventually she will get tired and move on to someone closer to her age. I mentioned to Ben, "You were right. I think we should pull off and fill up your Cobra." Ben exclaims, "Shit, Tom, I forgot my wallet." Jens adds her own exclamation, "And I don't have a purse." I glance over, smile, and say, "Don't worry. I've got some cash on me, and we'll take care of filling up this thirsty little snake." Jens giggles and remarks, "Hey, I like that. I think that's what I'm going to call her, Snake." Ben suggests, "We could get a Cobra graphic done on the trunk while the name is being changed on the door." That sets Jennifer off, and she complains, "I can't believe that biatch Stacy stole my car, had it restored, and then put her own frickin' fracking name on the door." Ben laughs and declares, "If she thought doing that would somehow make me leave my lovely and practically perfect wife, she must really be crazy." Jens picks up on my words and immediately complains, "What the heck is this practically perfect? I thought I was perfect." Ben whispers something in Jennifer's ear. She blushes and says, "Thank you for explaining that comment." I ask, "So what did Ben say?" Jennifer blushes again and replies, "It's private, and Ben, don't you dare tell him." I taunt, So Jennifer, do you always henpeck your husband? Jennifer exclaims, henfrickin' peck. What in the heck do you mean? I laugh and Ben consoles her. Jens, Tom's just pulling your leg. He continues with, Tom, pull into that gas station. Then he swears, shit. I wish I had asked Stacy something about the rebuild on the Cobra. I query, what's that? Ben explains, the 427 needs premium gas, which is almost unavailable anymore. I wonder if she got it set up to use gasohol. I look at the pumps as we pull in and remark, well, you either have low-octane normal gas or high-octane gasohol. Ben submits, well, I guess we will try gasohol. I pull up to the highest octane gasohol pump they have, exit the Cobra, and Ben announces, Jens, I need to stretch my legs. Jennifer opens the door, climbs off Ben's lap, and it's all I can do to keep from laughing since Ben has a major tent in his pants. Hell, I would too if she was sitting on my lap. He sits in the seat until he relaxes, exits that car, comes over to me, and says, thanks for not saying anything about that. I act like I don't know what he's talking about and ask, what are you talking about? Ben says, Tom, I noticed where your eyes went when Jens got out of the car, so don't try to bullshit me. I laugh and remark, damn, you don't miss anything. Ben replies, most of the time I don't, but sometimes I do. Are you watching the crowd we've attracted? I reply, hell yes, and I've seen them too. Don't worry, I will move in such a way that my gun is exposed. That should chase them off. Yeah, the Cobra had attracted the interest of a couple of undesirable-looking men. I make sure my coat falls open so they see the pistol on my hip. The snake was full, so I head into the store to pay for the gas, and one of them says as I pass, that's a nice car of yours. I ignore the comment, head in to pay for the gas, and things go to hell in a handbasket quickly. The guy's walking behind me, and one of them orders, don't turn around, and hand me your gun using 2 fingers. I never get to react because I hear a couple loud as hell cracks, and the guys begin to scream. I turn around and see that Ben had come in behind them and had beaten the shit out of them with a tire iron. I pull my pistol, display my badge, flash the guy behind the counter, and order, call the police. There are idiots born all the time. The 2 guys head in the store after Tom, so I go to the Cobra, open the trunk, pull out the tire iron, and Jens asks, what are you doing now? I smile at her and reply, those 2 guys are behind Tom in the store and are going to try to rob the store and take your Cobra. Jens says, no one is taking my snake again. I knew I should have brought a gun. I order, stay here and I will take care of them. She complains, no way in heck, I'm backing you up. I order, then take off those loud shoes so we can sneak up on them. She slips off her shoes, then we sneak into the store behind the 2 guys. I wait until they try to take Tom's gun and club the shit out of both of them with the tire iron. Tom takes control of the situation, looks at me and asks, damn, did you really need the tire iron? Hell, you broke their arms and cracked their skulls. He sees Jens behind me and asks, and what are you doing here? Jens answers, taking care of my man. I reply, I used the tire iron because I didn't want to get my dress blues dirty. Tom says, well, we will need to wait for the police to show up and give them our statements, so we're going to be here a while. Jens complains, dang it. I guess we will miss the birth of Liz's baby. I hand my phone to her and suggest, give them a call and let them know. Jens makes the call while I watch the 2 idiots laying on the floor in front of Tom. They finally wake up and begin to whine. Tom comes over and says, thanks for covering my 6. I reply, no problem. I knew what was happening when they followed you into the store. Jens comes over and says, well, they made it to the hospital just fine, and Liz is in the delivery room. I guess it could be another few hours until she delivers, so we still might make it. Tom says, I should move the Cobra away from the pumps. I hand him the tire iron and ask, could you put this back in the trunk? He replies, no problem. He heads out the door, and Jens says, I'm going to go get my shoes. She follows him outside. I look at the 2 idiots and say, you're lucky I didn't just kill the 2 of you. One of them whines, I wish you would have. The other one threatens, we're going to sue your butt off. I laugh in his face and reply, no you won't. You know what's going to happen to you in prison with that broken arm? You're going to be too busy being someone's sweetheart to have the time to sue me. He begins to cry as I laugh again and taunt. That's right. I hope you like how your life is going to turn out. Jens comes back in and taunts them too. So you 2 idiots thought you were going to steal my car? You're lucky you didn't try because I would have killed you. Tom has parked the Cobra and comes back in as the police arrive. He flashes his badge to them and gives them a statement. When he's done, the policeman comes over to me and asks me for my statement. I tell him what happened, and his only comment is that I shouldn't have taken the law into my own hands. Jens gets feisty and says, why the heck not? They planned on stealing my Cobra after they robbed the store. The officer looks at her and makes a huge mistake when he says, that's a nice-looking car. If it's yours, you must be Stacy. Tom begins to laugh, and Jens practically explodes. Heck no. I'm not that Stacy biatch. She stole my car and had her name put on the door instead of mine. The officer looks confused, so I say, it's a long story that's already been taken care of. Yin's my love, don't we need to get to the hospital? Yin's apologizes, sorry officer, Ben's right. This is a long story and we do need to get to the hospital where my best friend is having a baby. Tom comes over and asks the officer, we really need to go if you don't need anything else from us. The officer says, no, I have everything I need. We head out the Cobra. I climb in and Yin sits on my lap again. Tom starts the Cobra and we head toward the hospital. Present, Bernie and Liz at the hospital. We made it to the hospital just fine and expected Ben and Jennifer to be behind us, but they weren't. Because we had already done the paperwork, we were hustled into the delivery room and Liz fretted, where the hell are Yinz and Ben? They were right behind us. Liz's mobile phone rings. She looks at it and says, it's Tom. He was driving the car. She answers the phone, and from the conversation I can tell that it's Jennifer, so that should help to put her mind at ease. She hangs up the phone and remarks, those two must be trouble magnets. They stopped a robbery at a gas station and had to wait for the police. They are on their way, so they should be here soon. Liz starts another contraction. This one came closer than the last, and I say, Liz, remember, concentrate on your breathing. She begins to breathe like we learned in the online Lamaze classes until the contraction passes. The doctor comes in and asks, well, how are things going? I reply, my wife's last contraction was 5 minutes from the previous one. The doctor congratulates us, wife? So you two finally got married. How was the ceremony? Liz chuckles and I explain, it was in the back of the ambulance bringing us here. Liz adds, I tell the doctor, my water broke and I started labor when the wedding march started. The doctor says, well, let's take a look and see how things are progressing. The doctor says, things are looking fine. Because this is your first child, we're going to put a fetal monitor on you. He relays the order to the nurse who leaves and comes back with a scary-looking machine. I ask, are you sure this is necessary? He answers, it's not necessary, but it is advisable. I ask, is it going to hurt? He laughs and says, you tell me. I already connected it. He looks at the screen and relieves all my fears when he says, things are looking well for your baby. Bernie, please continue to keep track of the time between contractions, and I will be back in a short time. The doctor leaves. Bernie kisses me and says, Liz, we're really going to do it. We're going to have a baby. I smile at Bernie, then change to my Lamaze breathing as another contraction starts. Present, Tom, Yinz, Ben, and others at the hospital. We make it to the hospital just fine, but it is a pain in the butt driving this car in the city. I tell Ben and Jennifer, after what happened at the gas station, you two go into the hospital while I watch your car. They begin to get out of the car, and I can't believe it as a taxi pulls up and the twins bail out of the back. Ira begins to scold them. Mr. and Ms. Blaine, do not ever depart a location without informing us. Jennifer apologizes, sorry Ira, we weren't thinking. Mira adds her 2 cents. Ms. Blaine, there is no adequate excuse for what you did, especially after the taunting of the terrors. Ben says, okay girls, you're right. We made a mistake. Now we need to get inside because Liz is having her baby. The taxi driver yells, hey, someone needs to pay for their fare. Hell's bells, I'm not sure if I have enough money to do that. I walk over to the driver and ask, what's the damage? He replies, $110. I explain, listen, those two, I point at Ben and Jennifer, didn't bring any money because they were in a wedding and right now I'm tapped out. I show him my badge and continue. I'm a U.S. Marshal and I promise that you will be paid when we get back to Leadville. He says, okay, but I need you to sign a voucher for the fare or they will take it out of my pay. I agree. He makes out the voucher. I sign it and ask, where do we send the money? He says, don't worry, I will stop by the cabin and pick it up. Do you have any idea when you will be back? I reply, I don't have any idea. Let me give you a call when we get back. He says, and then complains, that will be fine. However, I'm not sure I ever want to take those two women anywhere again. They yelled at me the whole time to go faster and even threatened me some. I explained, they're the Blaine's bodyguards and aren't known for their social manners. He left, and I thought that he was lucky they didn't try to kill him. Mira is sitting in the Cobra, so I walk up and ask, aren't you going to watch Liz have her baby? Mira says, Tom, I have no interest of watching her have a baby. I reply, well, if you're staying here with the car, I'm going inside to get a cup of coffee. Do you want me to bring you anything? Mira replies, Tom, I have no need of sustenance at this time. However, why should I watch this car? I explain, this car is a huge attraction for car thieves. I'm concerned if it's left unattended here someone will take it. Mira says, then I will make certain no desperados appropriate this vehicle. I head into the hospital to get a cup of coffee and some food. I had counted on having something to eat after the wedding at the reception, but that went to hell. Ira walks into the delivery room and I ask Ira, does Mira have no desire to watch Liz give birth? Ira responds, no, Ms. Blaine, it would elicit many unpleasant memories for her. She will stay down here and I will accompany you and Mr. Blaine into the hospital. Tom joins us and says, Myra's watching the car, so I'm going to get a cup of coffee and something to eat. By the way, you two owe the taxi driver $110 and a tip for the twins threatening him. I ask Ira, why didn't you take one of the vehicles in the garage? Ira actually blushes and admits, Ms. Blaine, while we excel at many things, driving a four-wheeled vehicle is not one of our advanced skills. We head into the hospital, and I add a further question. You said four-wheel vehicles. Does that mean you can operate a motorcycle? Ira affirms, you are correct, Ms. Blaine. We are both excellent motorcyclists. I suggest to Ben, perhaps when we are back we should look into getting the twins some motorcycles. Ben surprises me when he proposes. I like Yin's suggestion, but she made one mistake, so I correct her assumption. Yinz, that's a great idea, but you left out a motorcycle for each of us. Jin says, Ben, I never knew you wanted a motorcycle. I reply, there are times that having one would be nice. I ask, Ira, do you want a street motorcycle or an off-road motorcycle? Ira says, Mr. Blaine, we prefer off-road motorcycles. Many street motorcycles cannot tolerate the punishment which we deliver to them. Yinz remarks, wow, I was thinking about a nice street bike. You two must be daredevils if you destroy a good street bike. Ira smiles and says, yes, Ms. Blaine. We upmake for not driving four-wheel vehicles with the extreme manner in which we operate motorcycles. I say, I'm glad we're getting off-road bikes since I really don't like driving street motorcycles. There are too many stupid drivers on the streets. Ira continues, oh, Mr. Blaine, we still drive the off-road motorcycles on the street, but if a driver bothers us, we just jump over their four-wheel vehicle. I laugh and remark, now that I would almost pay to see. Ira changes the subject. I ask Mr. Blaine, when are we going to have another sparring match with you? We still have not perceived your mystery martial arts discipline. He laughs and challenges. I figured you would still be hurting from the last time we sparred. I state, we have healed and have studied defenses for capoeira. We will not be surprised this time. Mr. Blaine smiles and says, with the wedding being over, we can seriously review our martial arts training. I concur, yes, Mr. Blaine, that is wise. While your technique is excellent, Ms. Blaine could greatly benefit from the practice. Yinz complains, hey, that's not a good thing to say. I do okay. I state, Ms. Blaine, you overestimate your abilities. You do not do okay. Your skills are barely adequate. Yinz says, well, at least I speak correctly. I will make an agreement with you. We will work on my martial arts skills at the same time as your verbal skills. I counter, Ms. Blaine, we have no issues with our verbal skills. Mr. Blaine interrupts. You don't have issues, but some others do. It might help the two of you, and surely wouldn't harm you. I sigh, Mr. Blaine, it would be a waste of our time. Mr. Blaine laughs and says, no more a waste of precious time than me sparring again with you two would be. But I did forget that you plan out every hour of your day. I smile and affirm, yes, Mr. Blaine, you should follow our excellent example. Present, Samantha, visiting Bill. I ask one of the agents about Bill, and he named the hospital where he was headed. We climb in the van that we took to Denver. John programs the hospital into the GPS, and we follow the directions. On the way to the hospital, I ask John, what do you think about Stacy maintaining that Jennifer is a witch? John laughs and replies, I personally think she's already trying to work on another insanity plea. I counter, I'm not sure this time. Could we be missing something? I mean, take a look at Destiny. She's a human and a wolf. John says, I think there's a long reach between equating witches and spirit animals. We arrive at the hospital, and I continue to ponder Stacy's words to me about Destiny. I walk up to the information desk and ask, do you have a patient here named Bill Brown? They check and respond, yes, we do, but he's currently in surgery. Here are the directions to the surgical waiting area. We walk to the surgical waiting area, and of course wait. Present, Stacy, alone. Since I'm alone, and in one of these terrible prison jumpsuits, I decide to take a nap. I'm almost asleep when I'm interrupted and the agent says, Miss Summers, it's time to interrogate you. I counter, not without my lawyers being present. The agent informs me, you are being held on terror charges, so the rules of having a lawyer present during interrogation do not apply. They put me in shackles and handcuffs, take me to an interrogation room, hook me up to the table, and begin to question me. I don't say a word. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.